Welcome, everybody, to an emergency podcast debate analysis. Yes, I'm sure everybody saw the debate on Thursday night. I know this episode is on Sunday morning. I wanted to take a couple of minutes, couple of days, let the debate sit, let the debate marinate, and importantly, bring you coverage of the debate the way that nobody else is bringing it. We're not going to talk about the winners. We're not going to talk about the losers. We're not going to talk about Biden's performance, which by this point has been ridiculed. We're not going to talk about Trump. I want to reveal the game that is in our politics. And I want to use this debate to demonstrate and to show the outrage industrial complex at work because, boy, they're playing us. We're being played, people. And the hopeful majority is there to build it. Now, look, every episode, if you're new to this, drops on Monday. Today's a special one. It's on Sunday. And I'm usually not in a suit. I just came off of a convention, and I actually watched this debate in the largest debate watch party I've ever been to, between equal amount of Republicans and Democrats in the audience. So I was really feeling the tenor of people, and I want to bring that to you. So let's get started. Here's some inside coverage on what I think you need to know about how we're being played, how we're being polarized, and the coverage that you're not getting. The debate. I want to start off just really quickly before we get into the substance of this, I want to give you a quote that a moderate purple voter shared at this debate watch party that I was at in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Carthage College. That's where I'm actually coming from right now. If it looks like I'm in a bathroom, I'm not in a bathroom. I'm in a dorm room. And in this debate party, this voter got up towards the end and said this. She said, "I don't care who won, America lost. I'm incredibly disgusted by what I saw on both candidates." And another person stood up, believe it or not, who's a Democratic voter, said, "I watched this debate and I might actually flip my vote to Trump." And then a Trump voter got up afterwards and said, "I still believe that Trump is my choice, but that is not the showing that our people deserve." And importantly, as you know, I lead an organization called Bridge USA, and I was actually sitting in the audience with some students and some fellow leaders that build Bridge. And man, I got to tell you, people in my generation, first of all, we were just laughing throughout this debate, right? But outside of the laughter, what was even sadder was just the level of anger that we had towards the political system. We said, how did we get here? How did we get here? And that's the question I want to answer. That's the question that nobody else right now is focused on. What everybody's focused on is the election. And yes, that's important. But there's a lot of shows focused on that. This show is to give you the inside coverage into why we're so incredibly polarized and importantly, expose the game of our politics. Expose the game of our politics from our perspective, the people's perspective. I want to do this piece in 3 parts, 3 tactics I want to show and share with you from the debate, because I think that we as Americans, we as people of the hopeful majority, those of us that believe in being open-minded, no matter what our political beliefs are, no matter how strong we believe it, that we believe in the idea of dialogue, the idea of not scoring political wins, but actually solving our problems. So what are the 3 things that we should be aware of when we saw this debate? Because as we become more educated, the less the people out there, the conflict entrepreneurs, the politicians are able to play us against each other. Because I don't need to say this, but here's a bright idea. What we need right now is for people like us to actually stand up and demand something better. That's how we get beyond not only this election, but how we arrest the toxic spiral of polarization that's in our country right now and revive and create a better possibility for the future, because that's what people in my generation want. So 3 tactics you should be aware of. 3 things about this debate. The first is this debate is not about substance. We've entered the meme era of politics. What do I mean by the meme era of politics? This debate and the outcome of this debate is not determined by how nuanced our discussions are. It's determined by the short clips that these candidates can produce. It's determined by whether or not you and I can say the hottest take, clip that, make that go viral on TikTok to rile a bunch of people up. That's the real objective of this debate. The way that the winner is entertained and engaged is not by whether or not President Biden or Trump had a detailed discussion on, let's say, take abortion, for example. But to say something like this, I took this quote down. Both people at the start of this debate, when the abortion topic came up, said all the respected scholars wanted Roe overturned. Biden would say all the respected scholars want Roe to be upheld. Do you actually know the truth at the end of that? Of course not. Of course not, because here's the secret. The truth doesn't matter. Your anger matters. And getting you angry, getting us angry so that we vote and turn out is all that matters. And the way that they go out engaging that is to memify, dumbify, to make it so that all of our politics are boiled into 60-second clips. And that's how we rile and divide. And the pundits and influencers are going to use these clips to drive their engagement. All the reaction that I'm sure you've been watching from your favorite show, favorite cable outlet, favorite social media influencer, they're all right now just chomping at the bits, trying to get these clips out to take down this candidate or that candidate. And that's just not how we solve anything. So number one thing to know is this debate is not about substance. The winner is determined by the shortest clips that they can create that create virality. And that is not how we solve our most nuanced problems. Tactic number 2. I'm looking at my phone right now because I've got a couple of quotes written down. Tactic number 2. The outrage industrial complex is in full swing. What do I mean by that? Right now, we live in a moment. We've had past episodes that talk about this, where we traffic in outrage, not solutions, not nuance. What do I mean by that? When a debate comes on, when a dialogue comes on, you say the craziest thing, the most outlandish claim, because of course we're not going to have a discussion to get to the bottom of the truth. It's all about just making sure that you share that clip. So I'll give you an example of some quotes. The worst administration in history, the greatest economy we've ever seen. Everything he said is a lie. That's just a small sampling of an example of what the entire debate was like. And you probably can't tell which candidate said what. But the point is that right now, these phrases are used. They're mobilized to divide, not to create substance. These phrases are used and mobilized. I'm looking at my phone to tell you that right now when I see some of these quotes that were coming in, and as we analyze this, we don't actually know what the truth is at the end of any of this. And that's the secret of the outrage industrial complex. If you don't know the truth, you just can keep helping people play on their outrage because we live in two different realities. I mean, right now you're listening to me talk to you about this. I'm sure I would ask you if this was a live audience, but raise your hand if you were sitting through the debate and you're like, you know what? I learned something. I learned something. Did you really though? I didn't. At this debate watch party at the end, they had people raise their hands if they felt more informed by the debate. And I think that was just a dumb question to ask because I think 2 people out of a crowd of 160 raised their hands. The fact is that tactic number 2 for us to understand and recognize that the outrage industrial complex is at work. To drive interaction and engagement on social media, President Biden, President Trump have to say the craziest things about each other because they know that you and I are going to share that clip. We're not going to share the nuanced conversation, the 3-minute back and forth on a substantive issue like abortion that demands that complexity. No, they're going to say, this guy's evil, boom. That's the argument. That's the debate. And here's the sad part of all of this, right? Here's the saddest part of all of this. They want it like this. They want us to be this divided because a binary political system, right, where you and I are against each other, well, that one is easy to play off of. Why is it easy to play off of? Because all they got to do is turn me against you and you against me. And who wins in that? I think you know the answer. The winner isn't us. The winner are the conflict entrepreneurs out there. The winners are the spin masters, the polarizers, the pundits, the influencers. And towards the end of this, after I share tactic number 3, we're going to actually quickly dive into how we start to shift and turn this tide. Because the question that I think is the most important to answer right now is not who won the debate. It's how did we get here? Tactic number 3. Tactic number 3, use fear. Fear, 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 fear. One of the earliest episodes of the show, we had on Jonathan Eig, who wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning biography on Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King. And one of the things that he told me was, look, there's 2 ways leaders lead, Manu. I said, what are the 2 ways? The 2 ways that leaders lead is they either turn people towards each other or against each other. And then he asked, do you know why there's so few Martin Luther Kings and Mahatma Gandhis in the world? I said, why? He said, because it's much easier to turn people against each other than it is towards each other. Fear is a much easier motivator, especially in an environment that is so social media saturated, where we think we're very connected to each other, but we're really not. We're really not. So what's an example of fear? Here's a quote. Here's a couple of quotes. Our border is the most dangerous place in the world. People are dying all over the place. We're literally in an uncivilized country. If he is in office, you're going to lose all your rights. Now, I don't care who said what, but the fact is that this campaign and both candidates have utilized and trafficked in fear as the primary currency to turn people against each other. And importantly, as you know, this is not an election for an affirmative vision. This is an election to vote against the other. How many people actually say, I want Joe Biden in office? No, what they're going to say is, I don't want Trump in office. How many people are going to say, I want Donald Trump in office? No, they're probably going to say, I don't want Biden in office. I don't want the liberal left. Using fear. Because why would a candidate today sit out there and try to convince people around a hopeful cause where we can bring people together, not for some kumbaya purpose, but for real legitimate pathways to find the solutions to our most pressing problems? That sounds, forget naive. That just sounds totally out of touch at the moment. So what were the 3 things that we exposed in this debate? 3 things that you should be watching out for in our politics on a daily basis. Because I think that the number one way that we fight back polarization is by being informed about their tactics, about being informed so that we aren't played, so we aren't exploited. Fear, using outrage, and driving clicks, because it's all about the short content. It's not about nuance. So the question becomes, what do we do about it? Well, if you're a listener of the show, thank you, because you are a big part of the solution. I think that the majority of people in this country, the reason why this is called the hopeful majority, as you know, is that the majority of the people in this country might have very strong liberal beliefs, might have really strong conservative beliefs, might have real value differences, but most people in this country agree on a mindset, a temperament, a way of thinking, the how. Most people in this country believe we should be open-minded instead of being closed-minded. Most people in the country believe that we need to listen to each other as opposed to shut people out. Most people in the country believe that we need to live in a world in which your and my voice stands so that we can actually understand that e pluribus unum, out of many one, we are much smarter as a collective. So the real job of leaders should be to stitch together the social fabric, not to just pretend that we're united, but to actually get to the bottom of the truth to solve the most pressing problems of our time, because God help us, that's what's needed. And that's how we fight back. That's how we shift back. We have to recognize that you are in the majority when you're sitting there on your couch saying, this is nonsense. So you're in the hopeful majority, but step number 2 is action. Here's the secret sauce, the missing Jenga block in this tower of polarization. The reason why outrage, fear, short clips, contents are the name of the game right now is because what sells is those things. It's that you and I click on those things. You and I share those things. Politicians know that we're not going to take the extra minute because we have such busy lives to actually parse through the truth. What we're going to say is Trump said this, out. Biden said this, out. It's up to us to shift the incentive structures. We can start shifting these incentive structures one conversation at a time, one dialogue at a time, but most importantly, through a mindset shift of understanding that you are not in the minority, but the majority, and there's a vocal minority out there that dominates every microphone. Now, there's many other causes. We've had presidential candidates on to discuss polarization. We've had Andrew Yang come on, who talked about the primary system and the voting systems. We've had a special episode about the war right now in Israel, Gaza, where we discuss some of the complexity around media. Of course, there's a lot out there. But the fundamental unit of American democracy is the citizenry. It's the people. We start with we the people. And no matter what institutional changes we make, until we as people don't realize how we're being played and then unplug, we can't solve this. I'll end with this. New York Times reporter wrote a story about organizations like ours, like Bridge USA, bridging differences, and he called it the Kumbaya Industrial Complex. The Kumbaya Industrial Complex, which had me thinking for a second. I said, Kumbaya. Well, you know what? I think the outrage industrial complex is much worse. My job, our job, is not to build some squishy middle where we all come together and agree, but it's to build an environment where we can have healthy disagreements, where the incentive structures do not exist for these two choices to exist. America is an amazing country with so many amazing people, and this is what we're with. So the question we got to ask ourselves is, how did we get here? And I hope this conversation helped, because the next few episodes are all focused on solutions. As we go into the election cycle, it's going to get more divisive, more crazy. The comment section, I know every time is going to be like this. It's time for us to change. It's time for us to fight back. It's time for us to build that hopeful majority, because people like you and I can engage. Look, every Monday, except for today, the hopeful majority comes to you on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your content. Leave a like if you appreciated this on YouTube. Subscribe. Leave a review on Spotify, Apple. Every bit counts because we got to start elevating new voices, the voices that represent us, because that's the only way we start. You and I together with everybody else that are trying to bridge our differences to realize this is how we're being played and we're going to build something better. I'll see you next week.